I've had the Fujifilm X100V for about a year now, so today in this video I'm gonna give you my 1 year no BS review. Hey, my name is Matt, and on this channel we talk about street photography. To give you a little bit more context about this camera and why I got it and who I am to make this review more helpful for you, I've been doing street photography about the same time for a little over a year now and decided to get this camera because it was more compact. The Olympus that I had was perfectly fine, but I wanted to, one, experiment with a wider focal length, and two, I just wanted a more compact camera because my Micro Four Thirds, even though the body was a little bit smaller, this lens was actually like twice as big. I was deciding between the X100V and the Ricoh GR3, but this ain't the Ricoh GR3. I'm playing, y'all. This is actually the Ricoh GR1 from 2013, but they look the same, so I'm just showing it here. But I was deciding between the GR3 and the X100V because for street photography, you know, these are two highly touted or just most often talked about street photography cameras. There are a bunch of other ones that are perfectly viable and probably great to use, but I'm gonna be straight with you too. I, around this time last year, was watching a lot of YouTube photographers, and seriously, the only thing people were talking about was this X100V. And rightfully so. This thing is nice. It's a really well-crafted product. I just, you know, look at it, you know, I just look at this thing sitting on the table and I'm like, that's beautiful right there. That's really beautiful. So when it came down to it, I finally bought the X100V because very much so I was influenced by the hype. But from a utility perspective, it was a little bit more versatile with the 35mm than the 28mm, because not that you can't take portraits with the 28, but it was closer to a more that type of look that I wanted with the 50mm equivalent. But 35 felt like the best of both worlds, so I went for it. At the time, it was listed at $1,400 retail. I bought it off of eBay for exactly $1,234. Not an easy decision to make, but I had some money to splurge. The Ricoh GR3 was pretty close too. I think it was used gonna be about $800 at that time when I was looking. Very significant difference, but I had some money because I've got a day job that's not my full-time thing. Decided to get myself something nice, you know what I'm saying? The situations and things I've used the X100V for include street photography, going out on the streets in public, shooting wide scenes, but also going up and talking to people and getting portraits. A lot of just documenting family and friends. Small and big trips too. By small trips, I mean day trips out to a city or out to a hike, or even a weekend trip would count as a small trip for me. Big trips being week-long things or months at a time. I found the X100V to be useful in most situations. It's a pretty all-around camera, and even in low-light situations, I bring this camera out with me at night a lot, and it does pretty well, especially because the lens can get pretty wide open at f2, and it's got a built-in ND filter that I actually don't often use, but it is there for really partially lit situations, like during the day at like 2 p.m. There are two situations specifically where the X100V falters a little bit. One, to me, is when you need fast focus. So I said that when things are moving quickly, you can get really sharp images, and you can. If something's moving and you need to focus in on it, sometimes the X100V, when it looks for contrast, this is really dependent too on other variables, like are you in low contrast, like kind of maybe at night. Focus just isn't as fast, so sometimes you see a photo opportunity that you want, and then when you look at the result, it's blurry because you're out of focus, or the camera kind of hunts for focus, and by that point, you know how it goes if you're doing street photography. Just like 1 second, half a second, and the opportunity is gone. The second situation where the X100V kind of struggles is when you need to be more discreet. Sometimes in street photography too, not every single photo involving people you're gonna go ask for permission. Sometimes that artistically defeats the purpose of the photo or the opportunity that you saw, and you just kind of have to take the photo. You can tell that this is obviously like a camera, and so when you put it up, people are going to notice, and depending on how thick-skinned you are, you might care, you might not care, especially compared to if you're shooting with a phone, everyone's on their phone, or even compared to a better camera example, the Ricoh GR. Because of this form factor, it's really discreet too. So I mean, holding this thing up, snapping and going down versus holding this thing up is much different. A low-key thing is the colorway too. I got the silver black, and this silver is going to stand out versus if you have the all black X100V or an all black camera, or again your iPhone. It's just more discreet because it's smaller and blends into the environment some more. I have a few favorite things about this camera. I'll give a basketball analogy because that's the sport I like to play. There are different types of balls. You have the $10 ball you can get off Amazon and play outdoors with. Then there are those better balls. There's like the Wilson balls with the nice leather. It just feels better to grip. It's smooth. When you're handling this thing, it's, you know, not like a smoothed out ball. You know, if you've played outside a lot, the ball gets smoothed out and loses its grip, and it's basically an orange ball that's super slippery. But you have these Wilson balls that are perfect. You hold that thing, you're dribbling, you feel like Kyrie Irving, you're shooting it 90% free throw shooter, 50% from the field, you're Steph Curry all of a sudden. Whereas if you have this other street ball, you might just turn into straight garbage.
That's an air ball.
The X100V is the equivalent of a Wilson ball. This thing is fine. Like the way it's just crafted and the way it just holds it in your hand, and you're holding it with your fingers against the leather, the dials, and you hear like the little clicks. And sometimes if you're shooting with the viewfinder and you bring it up to your face and shoot, it's like a whole experience. It's an entirely different experience. And having since gotten the original Ricoh GR, where there's no viewfinder and it's very much just utilitarian and trying to get street photography done in a very purposeful, efficient way, it's different. This will do what you need it to do. This will do what you need it to do, but you're like riding in like a Rolls Royce, you're in like a nice car, whereas this is just an efficient car. I don't know my car, so I can't give really good examples. The size is really good. This thing is so easy to bring out. Sometimes I'll walk out with just a wrist strap, sometimes a neck strap, but most of the time I'm bringing the X100V out with me to document whatever's happening. Another thing that I like about the X100V is its weather resistance. This whole body is sealed except for the lens. Normally it doesn't come with a filter, but you can buy this adapter and put a filter on it, and by doing so it makes your X100V completely weather resistant. And that's important because if you like to go out into the rain or where you're up in the woods or something and it gets a little misty, it's a nice peace of mind to know that one, your camera will be protected, and two, you can do what you want creatively and bring out your camera and shoot photos. The third thing I like about this camera is the film simulations. So for all Fujifilm cameras, they have these filters basically that mimic film stocks. If you like the film look, or if you like shooting film and you're moving over to digital, then these film simulations make it fun, honestly. Like you can quickly get a photo you like with a certain color of a film stock that you want to emulate, and these film simulations let you do that. The fact that it's JPEG coming out and not a gigantic like 50 megabyte plus raw file size means that you can quickly do stuff with it if you want. You can share it, you can print it, you can do whatever. So creatively it's fun, but practically speaking, in my opinion, the film simulations actually make the workflow much more efficient and it makes photography much more enjoyable. For me, I don't like being stuck in a room editing. I'd rather be going out and shooting photos, because these film simulations get the end result of what I shoot close to what I want. I don't have to edit too much. Most of the time, the edits I do are just really small tweaks on sliders or the curves. I'm never in Photoshop. I'm never spending too much time on a single photo. It lets me go through my workflow and go through photos really quickly. Basically, film simulations keep the hobby going. Fourthly, if you're ever interested in printing books or printing your work, the X100V is more than capable of doing that. I just created a photo book for the first time using photos shot on the X100V, and I am super happy with how they turned out. So this thing is more than capable of printing work that you do. Finally, my favorite thing is that it's just fun to use. Like I said, a phone camera or maybe even the Ricoh, for example, will get the job done, but this thing adds to the experience of what I mentioned with the dials and the viewfinder and the film simulations and the way it looks, the way it holds in your hand like a Wilson basketball or a nice car. Both types of cars, for example, both type of basketballs get the job done. You can play the sport, you can get from point A to point B, but how you get there or how you do it, it improves the experience. This thing is fun to use and it makes me want to go out and shoot photos with it. But with those pros, those favorite things, there are also the negatives, the flip side of all of this. First of all, let's talk about the price of this thing. At retail, this thing is $1,400, $1,400, more than an iPhone. When I was researching prices, just because I want to see like if the supply chain issues have messed anything up, as of late March in 2022, I saw this thing was $18.99 on Amazon. That is fucking expensive. And because of that, of all the things I said about how nice it is, I don't know if it's worth it at that price point. And for you to consider as a viewer, even for $1,400 when it does come back in stock, I don't know if it's worth it still. You gotta decide for yourself. I had some money to splurge, like I said, but if really you just care more about the experience in terms of being able to go out and take photos, take nice photos, have gear that accomplishes your creative vision, then maybe something like this is all you need, and you don't need something like this. And because it's so nice, there's a downside. I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes I just can't have nice things. If you are scared of damaging it in any way, then that is something to consider. An analogy being sneakers. I'm a big sneaker person. I love sneakers. And if you know you have nice shoes, even simply, let's say you have new Nike Air Force Ones, new white sneakers, you go out and you get those things scuffed or dirty, and so next time you go out, you might be a little bit worried, like, I gotta be careful about my camera, like, gotta keep this thing precious, maybe I have to get the crease shield for my sneakers, and then I gotta get the water repellent so that it makes the shoes, if I ever spill anything on it. Like, these thoughts are very much real with nice things. Or you might be, really chill, not care, which is like all props to you. The last thing that I will say that I don't like about the X100V is its size. I know I just said the size is one of the reasons why I love it, and it is, but sometimes there are situations where this thing is still not compact enough, believe it or not. The X100V will not fit in your pocket. A camera like the Ricoh size will fit in your pocket. Moments where I found myself like this is where, let's say you're going out with your friends and you want to be snapping some pictures, not on your phone, and you want a little something better. The Ricoh would make more sense. Something like this is discreet, it's quick, you can snap. But bringing out something like this and you're going out and trying to be in the moment and have fun, it's gonna be really annoying because you're gonna have to be watching over this thing at the same time. Finally, the juicy bit. You've heard everything I've said and you're just like, Matt, just tell me, should I buy this camera or not? Yes, but it depends on if you got some money to splurge and what your needs are. Like I said, for most situations, this thing will work. Because it has a 35mm equivalent lens, you're gonna be adaptable to most situations. But if you're like a nature photographer or a sports person and you're trying to shoot action that's really far away from you, you're gonna need a zoom lens, and this thing is fixed and will not help you. So don't go for this if you find yourself trying to shoot those situations. For $1,400, it wasn't enough for me. I decided to go on eBay to look for something cheaper. At this point, I would even consider get this thing used. If you don't want like a fresh new thing, because it's gonna go through wear and tear anyways, then really consider buying this thing secondhand. It's still gonna be great, it's still gonna be nice, and it's still gonna be a joy to use. For the current price of $1,900 on Amazon, it's unavailable when I looked it up on like B&H or other sellers. For $1,900, I'm gonna have to give that a hard pass. Just wait until the supply chain, gets better. Or another tip is maybe wait until the next iteration of this camera comes out. This will probably get cheaper, and if you can snag it at a good price, then I definitely recommend it. Let's say you've convinced yourself that you're gonna get the X100V and that it's right for you. Let's just talk about some accessories that I recommend you getting. Get something that will protect you and your investment. Get a wrist strap or a neck strap or both, because this thing is nice. You spent a lot of money on it. You should protect it and get a strap that will attach it to your body in case for whatever reason you trip, you get pushed, something happens, that you're not dropping this camera and having the worst moment of your life, seeing it hit the concrete and face plant and shatter.
Yo man, your Jordans are fucked up!
But I get it sometimes if you don't want to use a strap. Sometimes I ride with the seatbelt off too. And I mean that figuratively. Wear your seatbelt when you drive. And the other thing I'd recommend getting is that filter adapter and a filter for it. It will make your camera completely weather resistant, and it will protect the lens in case you do get into an accident with your seatbelt on. With the filter, you can get a basic UV filter off Amazon or something for like 15-20 bucks, or you can get a creative filter like a Pro Mist or Glimmer or whatever to do something creative while having protection. That's an option. I'd recommend getting the cheaper filter adapter, because they have the official Fuji one, which is hella expensive. You can get an off-brand one for cheaper that functions the same way. But I do have to note that the filter I got, which is the JXC one, the off-brand one that most people get, I don't know about other people, but it's It has, I think, scratched a little bit, not of my lens, but of that portion of the lens surrounding it. It doesn't damage the camera functionally, but it's annoying to see a little scuff like that, a little scratch like that. If you need more convincing, I recommend checking out this other video I made about the most important reason why you should get the X100V.